The Silver Locket Murder. Part 1. A Voyage of Secrets. Welcome back to my channel, dear listeners. If you're fond of creaking floorboards, locked doors, and secrets too heavy for polite company, then you've come to the right place. Today, we set sail not just along the misty River Thames, but straight into a mystery tangled in money, memory, and murder. A silver locket, a sudden death, and a boat full of strangers, each with something to hide. This is not just a whodunit, it's a whydunit. And by the time this voyage ends, one among them will be dead, and another unmasked. So grab your coat, keep your voice down, and don't trust anyone too quickly, because aboard the Water Lily, nothing floats faster than suspicion. Chapter 1. The Passengers. It was the summer of 1934, and the Water Lily, a modest but elegant paddle steamer, was preparing to depart from Chelsea Pier. Her destination, Oxford, by way of the winding Thames. The voyage would take 3 days and 2 nights, plenty of time for peace, leisure, or something darker. The passenger list was small, but distinguished. Lady Eleanor Stone, a wealthy widow known for her sharp tongue and even sharper will. Edwin and Clara Bellamy, a young couple, he a banker, she a distant cousin of Lady Stone. Mr. Lionel Dorn, a private detective traveling incognito. Dr. Hargreaves, a retired physician with a curious fascination for poisons. Miss Ivy Greaves, a quiet schoolteacher with eyes that missed nothing. George Ellis, the steward with a clean uniform and a mysterious past. They boarded with smiles and polite nods, carrying picnic baskets and books, but hidden behind every cordial greeting was a flicker of something else: unease, anticipation, maybe even fear. Chapter 2. Whispers on Deck. The first night on the river passed peacefully. Glasses clinked in the dining salon. Music from a gramophone drifted through the corridors. By all appearances, the cruise was a success. But Mr. Dorn noticed things. Lady Stone's maid was absent, sent home abruptly before the voyage. Edwin Bellamy rarely looked his wife in the eye. Miss Greaves seemed particularly interested in the steward's every move. And Dr. Hargreaves lingered a little too long near the locked liquor cabinet. Dorn made no accusations, just notes. And when Lady Stone retired to her cabin early, complaining of a headache, he paused in the hallway outside her door. Something instinct perhaps told him the night was far from over. Chapter 3. Death Before Dawn. At precisely 5:17 a.m., the steward knocked on Lady Stone's door to bring her morning tea. No answer. By 5:45, with no signs of movement, the captain was alerted. Together with Mr. Dorn, they entered the cabin. Lady Stone lay motionless on the chaise lounge, a teacup on the table beside her. Her eyes were open, vacant. "She's gone," whispered the captain. The doctor arrived moments later. No sign of struggle. Heart failure? Dorn gently lifted the teacup. Or poison? The doctor sniffed the rim. "There's a bitter almond scent." "Cyanide," Dorn said. "Fast, untraceable, and favored by the bold." Chapter 4. The Locket. Among Lady Stone's belongings was a locked jewel case. Inside it, old letters, deeds, and a silver locket with a photograph inside. It showed a young woman and child. The photo was faded, but the resemblance to the steward, George Ellis, was unmistakable. When questioned, George denied everything. "I don't know the woman. I've never seen that locket." Miss Greaves, however, had seen it before. Lady Stone often wore it under her blouse. She said it was her only real treasure. Dorn pocketed the locket. Then someone must have known it held more than just sentiment. Chapter 5. Secrets in Silence. Clara Bellamy sat in the sunroom, wringing her hands. "She was my aunt," she finally admitted. "But we were estranged. She disapproved of my marriage." "Why?" "She believed Edwin married me for money." "And did he?" Clara hesitated. "He had debts. She offered to pay them if I left him. I refused." Dorn raised an eyebrow. "And she decided to change her will?" "She told me yesterday," Clara said. "Said she'd name me her heir again." "Again?" "She changed it once before, after our falling out." Dorn nodded. "And now she's dead before she could sign the new one." Clara went pale. Chapter 6. The Poison Cup. Dr. Hargreaves examined the teacup. Trace amounts of potassium cyanide. Undetectable by taste unless you know what to look for. "Who had access to her tea?" Dorn asked. George replied nervously. "Everyone. She brewed it herself sometimes. Said she didn't trust me to get it right. But not this time. She asked me to bring her hot water, that's all." "Was the cup already in her cabin?" "Yes. Always. Her favorite china." Dorn turned to Edwin. "Where were you last night between 11 and 1? "In our cabin. With Clara." Clara looked away. Chapter 7. Ivy's Finding. Miss Greaves knocked gently on Dorn's cabin. "I shouldn't be involved," she whispered, "but I found this in the library." She handed him a folded note. It read, "She knows the locket must be destroyed. Midnight." No signature, but the handwriting was familiar. Edwin Bellamy's banking ledgers matched perfectly. "Thank you," Dorn said. "I just want justice," she replied. "Or something else?" She didn't answer. Chapter 8. The night before. Flashback. The night Lady Stone died. Edwin entered her cabin, uninvited. They argued quietly, but bitterly. "You'll ruin me," he hissed. "You did that yourself," she replied. "I'll tell Clara everything. She already suspects." "You're bluffing." She reached for the locket. Edwin grabbed her wrist. They stared at each other, two wills forged in iron. And then he left. Chapter 9. The Will. Lady Stone's solicitor arrived by boat that afternoon. Dorn questioned him. She'd prepared the documents, but they were unsigned. She intended to sign them aboard? Yes. Today. And who would have inherited? The solicitor paused. The estate was to go equally to Clara Bellamy and a Mr. George Ellis. Gasps echoed through the salon. She believed George was her nephew, an illegitimate child of her brother. Was Edwin aware of this? She feared he'd lash out. That's why she kept it secret. Chapter 10. The Unmasking. All the passengers gathered on deck. The river was still. Fog blanketed the water. Dorn stood tall. Lady Stone's murder was no accident. It was born of greed, fear, and secrets too long kept. He turned to Edwin. "You stood to lose everything: money, reputation, and control. You poisoned her tea before George delivered the water. Swapped the cups yourself. Edwin said nothing. Ivy saw you enter her cabin. George saw you leave. And Clara knows you feared that locket. Clara spoke softly. You told me it meant nothing. But you burned letters. You lied. Edwin lunged but was restrained. As the sun broke through the mist, Dorn held up the locket. It held the truth, not about inheritance, but about guilt. He handed it to George. She believed in you. That's why she died. End of Part I. The boat continued upstream. One soul lighter, one burden heavier, and behind them, on the quiet waters of the Thames, floated the ghost of a silver locket and a woman who refused to be silenced. The Silver Locket Murder. Part 2. Shadows Beneath Still Waters. Full script, 6 words. Intro. Narrator voice. Ominous. Enticing. Welcome back, sleuth. When we left the Water Lily, Lady Eleanor Stone had been murdered, her fortune nearly stolen, and Edwin Bellamy unmasked. The silver locket had revealed its secret, a hidden heir. And justice, it seemed, had been served. But what if I told you the case wasn't quite closed? Because while Edwin Bellamy now waits in a police cell in Oxford, the rest of our passengers remain on the boat, and the river, much like the truth, still runs deep and dark. This is Part 2, Shadows Beneath Still Waters. And the murder has only just begun. Chapter 11. A Strange Nightfall. The Water Lily had docked temporarily near Goring-on-Thames, awaiting authorities who would take Edwin into custody. But as dusk settled, a dense fog rolled in thick and unnatural, like something out of a Gothic novel. Captain Greaves, a man with nerves of iron, decided to anchor until dawn. Most of the guests remained in their cabins, all except Lionel Dorn, who stood alone on deck, rereading the note that Miss Greaves had slipped him the day before. She knows. The locket must be destroyed. Midnight. But Dorn hadn't yet answered a more unsettling question. Who was she? Lady Stone was dead by then. So who did the killer fear? Chapter 12. The Stolen Journal. At precisely 3:12 a.m., a scream echoed across the river. Miss Ivy Greaves burst from her cabin, hair disheveled, eyes wide. "It's gone!" she shrieked. "What's gone?" asked Dorn, who had rushed from his own berth. "My journal. Someone broke in. They took it." "Your personal diary?" he asked. "No," she said breathlessly. "My observation journal. I kept detailed notes about everyone aboard. Times, movements, suspicions." Dorn's expression hardened. "That's not just a theft," he said. "That's damage control." They returned to her cabin. No signs of forced entry. No muddy footprints. Nothing out of place except one cracked window latch. Whoever it was knew exactly what they wanted. Chapter 13. Another Body. By sunrise, the Water Lily was silent. George Ellis, the steward, knocked on the Bellamy cabin to offer breakfast to Clara. No response. He knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Concerned, he opened the door. Clara Bellamy lay motionless on the bed, still in her nightgown, eyes open the exact same posture in which Lady Stone had been found. The teacup beside her untouched. No sign of violence, no struggle, no blood. But something was wrong, very wrong. Dr. Hargreaves rushed in and examined her. No pulse, no rigor yet. Recently deceased. What killed her? Dorn asked. The doctor looked puzzled. Not cyanide. No scent. He turned Clara's wrist gently and frowned. A needle mark. Chapter 14. New suspicions. Now 2 were dead. Lady Stone by poison, Clara Bellamy by injection, and the suspected murderer Edwin was locked away. It didn't make sense. Unless someone wanted it that way. Captain Greaves was shaken. We should cancel the rest of the voyage, he told Dorn. Not yet, Dorn replied. Someone aboard this ship killed Clara, and it wasn't Edwin Bellamy. Then who? Dorn looked around the deck. Dr. Hargreaves, George Ellis, Ivy Greaves. 3 with access, 3 with motive, 3 with secrets, and 1 with a syringe. Chapter 15. A doctor's bag. Dorn requested a private meeting with Dr. Hargreaves. Mind if I inspect your medical kit? He asked. Not at all, Hargreaves replied coolly, unlocking his leather satchel. Inside, stethoscope, vials, gloves, thermometer, and a hypodermic syringe. Do you use this often? Dorn asked. Only when needed. It hasn't been touched. Dorn sniffed it. Faint smell chemical, acrid. May I test the tip? You suspect me? Hargreaves chuckled. I was in my cabin all night. Alone? I'm a widower, Mr. Dorn. Always alone. Dorn pocketed the syringe. I'll have it analyzed. If it contains morphine or curare, we'll talk again. Chapter 16. The Maid's Secret. That afternoon, a letter arrived at the next dock addressed to Dorn. It was from Lady Stone's former maid, Beatrice, whom she had dismissed just before the voyage. The note was hurried, scrawled in pencil. Sir, I was let go because I knew too much. Lady S. feared for her life. Said someone close was plotting. Not Mr. Bellamy, someone quieter. Watch the teacher, Ivy. She asks too many questions. And she stole a key from the lady's drawer last month. I saw it. Dorn reread the letter twice. If true, then Ivy Greaves was no innocent observer. She was a player. Chapter 17. Ivy's True Nature. That night, Dorn invited Ivy for tea in the salon. I always liked puzzles, she said, sipping, and this cruise is certainly a twisted one. Even more twisted if you're part of it. Her eyes narrowed. What do you mean? You kept notes on everyone. Then they're stolen. Now Clara is dead, and you are the only one who knew her whereabouts. I was asleep. Convenient. I could say the same about you, Mr. Dorn. He leaned forward. You knew about the will before the solicitor arrived. You knew about the locket's significance, and you had access to the tea cabinet. A long silence. Then Ivy smiled. Prove it. Chapter 18. An old case. In his cabin, Dorn pulled out an old newspaper clipping from his valise. It was dated 1926, 8 years earlier. Headline: School teacher cleared in poisoning of headmistress. Photo: a young Ivy Greaves. Pale, thin, solemn-eyed. The article explained: suspicious death, poisoned tea, Ivy accused but no conviction. Lack of evidence. Dorn had recognized her from the beginning. He had just hoped it wasn't her again. Now, With two women dead in identical circumstances, it was time to stop hoping. Chapter 19. Missing Money. George Ellis approached Dorn in confidence. "I found something in Clara's drawer," he said. He handed over a folded envelope. Inside, a check for £2 made out to cash, signed by Clara, dated 2 days before her death. Dorn frowned. "Did she mention anything to you?" "She said someone was threatening her," George whispered. "Said she couldn't trust anyone." "Not even her husband?" George shook his head. "No, especially not her husband." Dorn's mind turned. Clara had tried to buy silence. But whose? Chapter 20. The Confession. That night, Dorn confronted Ivy again. He laid the check, the newspaper clipping, and the maid's letter on the table. "I don't need a confession," he said, "but I'd appreciate one." She stared at the items, then at him, and laughed. "Oh, Lionel," she said softly, "you still believe justice is neat. So you did kill them." "No, I only killed one." "Don't even still?" "Which one?" "Guess." She stood and walked away, leaving behind only her tea, untouched. Chapter 21. Two Truths. Dr. Hargreaves returned later that night with results from the syringe. "It contained morphine," he said. "Enough to stop a heart." "So Clara was euthanized?" "Not necessarily. Depends on the dose. This was deliberate." "And the teacup?" "Also had traces of digitalis, but not enough to kill. A warning, maybe." Dorn paced. "Two poisons. One syringe. One motive." He turned back to the doctor. "What do you know about Miss Greaves?" Hargreaves posed. "She was a student of mine. Briefly. Very promising. Very cold." "Did you teach her about poisons?" "I taught them all about poisons. But she remembered." Chapter 22. Final Revelations. In the salon, Ivy stood before the passengers. "You all suspect me," she said calmly. "And perhaps you're right. But consider this. Why would I kill Clara?" "She knew something," George said. "She was frightened," Dorn added. "Frightened people lie," Ivy replied. "Clara was paying someone to keep Edwin quiet." "Not Edwin," Dorn said. "You." A long silence. "I didn't kill Clara," Ivy said. "I tried to save her. She overdosed on morphine to escape disgrace. I found her. Too late." "You expect us to believe that?" the captain asked. "No," she said quietly. "But it's the truth." Chapter 23. End of the voyage. When the Water Lily docked in Oxford, the authorities were waiting. Ivy Greaves was arrested for obstruction and suspicion of murder. Edwin Bellamy remained in custody. But there wasn't enough evidence to tie either directly to Clara's death. Dorn disembarked quietly, with a satchel full of notes and a heart full of doubt. George Ellis, now named the rightful heir, inherited Lady Stone's estate, but he declined most of it, choosing instead to return to his old life in Kent, simple, anonymous, and quiet. Dr. Hargreaves vanished from the medical register. No forwarding address. And Ivy Greaves? Aquated. Again. Chapter 24. The Last Letter. Weeks later, Dorn received a letter, no return address. In it, a single page. Lionel, Some truths are too fragile for daylight, but thank you for trying. I enclosed was the silver locket. Inside, a new photograph. Lady Stone, George Ellis, Ivy Greaves. Together, smiling. Years ago, Dorn stared at the image long into the night, and somewhere on a shelf, he placed the case file next to another marked, The Silver Locket Murder. Unresolved. Outro. Narrator. So ends part 2 of The Silver Locket Murder. 2 dead, 1 vanished, 1 unpunished, and a mystery that still lingers like fog on the Thames. Join me next time for part 3, where new truths rise from old graves. Until then, lock your doors and never underestimate the quiet ones. End of part I. Approx. 650 words. Would you like me to begin part 3 next? Or would you prefer this in a D? The Silver Locket Murder. Part 3. Whispers Beneath the Surface. Chapter 11. Shaken Trust. The river had grown quieter, as if the water itself were listening. After the discovery of the coded note in Clara Bellamy's Bible and the whisperings about the locket's origins, Inspector Alaric Dorn knew the calm wouldn't last. Clara had refused to speak that morning. She had stayed in her room, declining breakfast, her eyes hollow when the steward checked on her. Edwin, her husband, paced the main deck like a ghost tethered to guilt. Miss Clark, the ever-watchful journalist, had taken to scribbling pages upon pages in her leather-bound notebook. Dorn noticed she kept glancing over her shoulder. She was hiding something, he could feel it. A sudden cry shattered the morning's fragile stillness. "Help! Someone down here!" It was George, the young steward. His voice echoed up from the lower engine hold. Dorn and Captain Wren rushed down the narrow stairs and into the suffocating heat of the lower deck. George was kneeling beside a crumpled body. It was Basil Hargreaves. The doctor was dead, his head slumped against the pipe, his eyes wide open in a frozen mask of surprise. And in his clenched hand, smeared with soot, was a torn piece of Lady Miriam Stone's old diary. Chapter 12. The diary's warning. It took nearly an hour to calm the passengers. Adeline Clark insisted on documenting the scene, while Edwin Bellamy vomited over the side of the ship. Clara had to be sedated with brandy. The captain sealed off the engine room, while Dorn and Miss Clark examined the fragment found in Dr. Hargreaves' hand. The writing was faded, but legible. "I saw her near the cabin at dusk. I should never have brought the locket back. If she learns the truth, it will be the end of me." There was no signature, but Dorn had a suspicion it was Lady Stone's hand. "She brought the locket aboard," Dorn muttered, then feared someone might uncover what it meant. Miss Clark leaned in. "But who is she? Clara? Me? Someone else?" "That's what we must find out. And quickly. 2 people are dead. This is no longer a game." Dorn gathered the remaining passengers in the lounge that evening, just as dusk painted the Thames in burnt orange and copper. "We are at a turning point," he said, voice level. "If any of you know something, anything, now is the time." Silence. Even George, the steward, looked too frightened to speak. That night, someone tried to push Miss Clark overboard. Chapter 13. Night Assault. She screamed just in time. Dorn came running as Clark clung to the brass rail, panting. Her notebook lay pages down on the wet deck. I didn't see who it was," she gasped. "They were wearing gloves. I turned, and they were just there. Shoved me. A boot print was found fresh and muddy. It didn't match any passenger's shoes. But Dorn knew one place no one had searched yet: the hidden cargo compartments beneath the galley. With Captain Wren's permission, they pried open the trapdoor that night. Rats scattered, and the stench of damp wood filled the air. But behind stacked wine crates, they found a hidden suitcase. Inside was a faded photograph of Lady Miriam Stone, with a girl. The same girl from the locket. A girl who, it turned out, had gone missing 20 years ago, presumed drowned. The girl's name was Juliet Ashcombe. And she was Adeline Clark's mother. Chapter 14. Bloodlines. It took hours for Miss Clark to admit the truth. She had never known her mother. Her aunt had raised her, and all she'd ever been told was that her mother died young. A week before this voyage, she'd received an anonymous letter with only two things inside: the photo of Lady Stone with Juliet, and a second locket identical to the one Lady Stone had died clutching. "I came on this cruise hoping to find answers," Clark said, voice trembling. "I thought Lady Stone might have known my mother. I didn't expect any of this." Dorn believed her. She had been followed, attacked, nearly drowned. But the bigger question loomed. Who had sent that anonymous letter? And why now? In Juliet's photo, there was a man in the background, barely visible but with one identifying mark: a ring with a serpent crest. Captain Wren identified it as the symbol of the old Ashcombe Shipping Company, a dynasty fallen into disgrace after a mysterious bankruptcy. Clara Bellamy, upon hearing the name, fainted. Chapter 15. The third victim. At dawn, Clara was missing. The ship was small. There weren't many places to go. Her cabin was empty, bed unmade. Edwin was asleep, drunk again. The galley was untouched. But the lifeboat inventory showed something chilling. One had been tampered with. Captain Wren ordered a full sweep, and after 3 tense hours, they found her clinging to a life ring, half conscious, her wrist bruised. "I tried to leave," she whispered. "I couldn't stay. I was afraid." Afraid of what? Or of whom? She was brought back aboard, shivering, and given dry clothes and tea. Dorn asked gently, "What were you running from?" Clara stared into her cup. "The girl from the photo, Juliet Ashcombe. I knew her. Years ago. We were both the wards of the same estate. Before I married Edwin." "You never mentioned this before. I thought it wasn't connected. But when I saw her photo, I knew something terrible had happened. I think Edwin knew too. I think he was involved." That evening, Edwin Bellamy locked himself in the piano room. He never came out alive. Chapter 16. A staged suicide. It was Captain Wren who broke down the door. Edwin was slumped over the grand piano. A single gunshot wound to his temple. A pistol lay beside him. The key to the door was still in his pocket. Dorn was skeptical. "Too neat, too quiet," he muttered. "No signs of struggle. And why would a man kill himself hours after surviving 2 days of questioning?" Then came the kicker. The pistol wasn't Edwin's. In fact, it was registered to Dr. Hargreaves, the same man who died in the engine room. Miss Clark gasped. So someone killed Hargreaves, took his gun, and planted it on Edwin to make it look like suicide? Or Edwin did kill Hargreaves, and someone turned the tables on him, Dorn said grimly. Either way, there were now 3 dead, 2 days left on the river, and only 5 people still alive on board. The list of suspects was getting shorter. Chapter 17. The letters. While checking Edwin's cabin, Dorn found something odd. A hidden drawer behind the bookshelf. Inside were dozens of old letters, some dating back 20 years. Most were signed with initials J.A. Juliet Ashcombe. The letters told of secret meetings, forbidden love, a pregnancy hidden from the world. One letter stood out. "If Miriam finds out, she'll never let me live. She said she'd ruin me. She said the child would never know her mother." Dorn stared at the handwriting. It matched Juliet's inscription in the locket. So Lady Stone had taken Juliet's child, hidden the truth, and ensured that neither the child Adeline nor Juliet would ever uncover the past. But someone else had, and they were eliminating anyone who could expose them. Chapter 18. Confrontations. Miss Clark confronted Clara once more. "You knew Juliet," she said. "You knew what Miriam Stone did. You kept quiet." Clara wept. "I didn't know she had a child. I thought she'd just vanished. Miriam threatened everyone who got close to her, even Edwin. Edwin helped cover it up." Clara nodded. "He was promised money, a position. Our marriage was part of it. But he hated her. And when Juliet disappeared, something in him broke." Dorn pressed further. "Who sent the letter to Adeline?" No one admitted to it. But Dorn noticed that George the steward was listening closely, too closely. That night, he followed the boy. and caught him sneaking into the radio room with a sealed envelope. Chapter 19. George's Secret. George panicked when caught. "I didn't kill anyone," he said. "I swear, I just delivered the letters. I was paid. In cash. A woman handed them to me weeks before the cruise." "What woman?" Dorn asked. "I don't know her name. Tall. Blonde. Wore gloves. Spoke with a slight accent." Clara's face turned pale. "That sounds like Juliet's old governess. I met her once." "She vanished after Juliet disappeared." Dorn's mind was racing. The governess. A keeper of secrets. A shadow in the background. And, perhaps, still alive? That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked overhead. The river churned violently. And when the lightning lit the deck, Dorn saw a figure standing at the bow, a woman he didn't recognize. She turned and vanished into the rain. Chapter 20. A Face from the Past. They searched the ship. Every room, every hatch, every deck. No sign of the woman. Only a single clue remained behind. A silver ring with the Ashcombe serpent crest placed atop the piano. A message. She had been on board, watching, listening, and she wasn't done yet. Dorn turned to Clark. "Whoever she is, she's behind this, and she's not finished." Miss Clark, eyes wide with fear and resolve, whispered, "Then neither are we." To be continued.